The words right-of-way do not appear anywhere in the international regulations for the prevention of collisions at sea. So we do not use those words in the learning zone. We speak of stand-on vessels and give-way vessels. Give-way vessels are the vessels that must take action to avoid collision in the given situation. A full description of the responsibilities of give-way vessels is in IRPCS Rule 16. Stand-on vessels must initially maintain course and speed and continue to monitor the situation. But stand-on vessels must take action to avoid collision if the give-way is not taking appropriate action. A full description of the responsibilities of stand-on vessels is in IRPCS Rule 17. Apart from certain situations around narrow channels and all overtaking situations, power-driven vessels underway should keep out of the way of sailing vessels, vessels engaged in fishing, vessels doing special work and vessels with mechanical problems. A full description of the responsibilities of power-driven vessels is in Rule 18A of the IRPCS. A power-driven vessel should try to avoid impeding the safe passage of a vessel displaying the signal for constrained by draft. A description of the responsibilities of power-driven vessels meeting vessels constrained by draft is in Rule 18D of the IRPCS. Vessels using narrow channels should keep as close as they safely can to the side of the channel that lies on the starboard side of the vessel. Safe navigation includes having regard for currents and using course to steer. A full description of navigating at the outer limits of channels and fairways is in IRPCS Rule 9A. Small draft vessels that do not need to use the channel should not use the channel when it is busy. Sailing vessels and power-driven vessels less than 20 meters should not impede the passage of vessels using the navigation channel and displaying a signal for constrained by draft. A full description of the requirements for sailing vessels and small power-driven vessels interacting with vessels constrained by draft using the channels and fairways is in IRPCS Rule 9B. We should consider the line of sight from the bridge of large vessels like container and LNG ships. The navigator on the bridge of the large vessel has a significant blind spot ahead and may not be able to see vessels ahead less than a considerable. We should also be aware that vessels constrained by draft and using a narrow channel do not have the option to deviate from their course without the consequence of going aground. A large vessel going hard aground could be a significant disruption of port activity and affect the economy. A head-on situation is when we observe ahead or almost ahead of us another vessel with both side lights, or both mast headlights in line or almost in line. A full description of head-on situations is in IRPCS Rule 14B and C. By day, a head-on situation is when we observe ahead or almost ahead of us a vessel presenting an aspect where by night we would be seeing both her side lights, or both mast headlights in line or almost in line. If we are in doubt about whether it is a head-on situation, we should assume that it is and maneuver accordingly. A full description of head-on situations is in IRPCS Rule 14B and C. The head-on situation is one of those rare situations where the IRPCS tells us what to do. The IRPCS tells us we should alter course and pass port to port. Some people say red to red. Seems simple enough. In recent years, especially now that most ships being fitted with automatic identification systems, AIS, it has become acceptable for vessels to call each other and make their own arrangement in crossing and head-on situations. Especially around the entrance to channels and pilot stations, navigators make their own arrangements. We must remember that 1. The IRPCS gives sufficient guidance on collision avoidance. 2. The IRPCS does not mention the use of VHF in collision avoidance. 3. There can be language and translation issues with the radio communications. 4. There can be mechanical issues after own arrangements are made. 5. Vessel must always keep monitoring the situation after arrangements are made.